2023 because of COVID and the whole world falling apart.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Good. Form fitting seats here.
Turn it on too.
It was off. So. It needs to be on, that helps. All right. You're live.
Yeah.
2022.
No.
Really late.
2023 it was, he said. They had to postpone it.
You know when I got your tower? 2014, WRTC 2014. 2014, wow.
All right, everyone have a seat, turn the radios off. I even turned my radio off.
Just turn my stuff off. A lot more traffic on the radio now than earlier.
Yeah.
It took me forever to get that tower up. Project, it's a big project.
It took years.
All right, so welcome to the Ham Radio Olympics. So, what do you mean by Olympics? That's exactly what this is. We get together, and we meaning the best ham operators in the world. They actually figure out who is good by contest scores and everything, and it's a head-to-head competition. So it happens every 4 years, just like the real Olympics. It's supposed to happen, every year, every 4 years. It was scheduled for 2022, but with everything with COVID and everything, they decided to put it off a year, so that's why it happened this year. Started in 1990 in Seattle. And so the one before was in 2018 in Germany. 2014 was right here in the Boston area, all along 495. They've had them in Russia, in Finland, Brazil, Slovenia, been in a number of places. The next one will be in 2026 in England. So this is truly an international thing. And the contestants are chosen, or the competitors are chosen by scores in various contests, like the CQ Worldwide, both the phone and CW, the WPX, the RLDX, Workville Europe, all contests I don't operate in. You say, Mitch, how come you're not in it? I said, I only operate stateside contests. they don't count those. And they have the world divided into specific regions, like North America 1, North America 2, Europe 1. North America 1 is basically one land. North America 2 is two lands. So that's how they do it. So they try to get enough slots to cover the entire world. And then, so they choose a competitor, and then each competitor can choose a second op from anyone within a list of people who are high scorers. So you're going to see people from different countries. That's kind of what they do. And then we also choose teams based on youth. They want to get youth people in there. And they also have teams who are called sponsored teams. Sponsor team, pay to play. So if they're a high-end contester and they're willing to make out a check for $10,000, $20,000, whatever it is, they can play too. That's how because this takes a lot of funding, a lot of money to put this whole thing on. So they get money any way they can. So then each team is assigned a referee to watch over what they're doing, and they operate during the IARU contest in July. That's a standing contest, and they operate in the middle of that. Let me just put something in here because this is driving me crazy. Okay. So the event moved out 1 year, but they decided to keep the 2022 name, and the stations, the actual where the hams operate from. Now in Boston, you remember, we pitched tents in the middle of fields, right? And that was okay, but then when they had to go to the bathroom, not so good. We had these very portable porta potties. They were like little tents with a hole in the ground. They were not very good. Yeah, in Italy. Oh, you bought one of those?
Well,
bought the
no,
whole
actually, we bought the whole kit.
Oh, the whole kit. Okay.
After they were closed.
So in Italy, they put them in places called agriturismo sites. These are small farms, and farms not doing all that good these days. So what they did with the farms is they allowed them to take on boarders, like a bed and breakfast, but that's what they call them. So these people are actually in buildings now. Now, some of the buildings were great. They were really exclusive. They had air conditioning, they had a pool, and some were kind of dumpy. So it was really the luck of the draw. And the stations were in the Emilia-Romagna area of northern Italy. So Bologna is the big city there. The call sign prefix of that part of Italy is I4. And so they all use identical antennas. It's the LZA 7-3. It's 10 elements. It's 2 on 20, 2 on 15, and 3 on 10. So it's a small antenna. Even though it looks large, it's small. It's a small boom. So they had that and a couple of dipoles. Everyone had the same antenna. They brought their radios, but they used the facilities there. And they were all tied via internet to headquarters, only to headquarters. They could not surf the web. They couldn't do anything, send messages. They are basically isolated from the entire world except for the control room. So the score details are uploaded every 10 minutes. So everyone who is there in Italy can actually see the scores posted. So we had routing going on there and that sort of stuff.
So they can contact any ham. It doesn't have to be somebody in the WRTC.
Oh yeah, any ham who calls them, yeah, they can contact them. They can contact each other, any ham. And a lot of hams get on to work them. They had an award for working all 56 of the 58 of the competitors. So you got actually a certificate for doing that. So where's Emilia-Romagna? It's in northeastern Italy, 200 miles north of Rome. It's 2 hours from Rome by high-speed rail. So we took the high-speed rail. We flew into Rome instead of trying to change planes there. The station locations are it's on a flat plain, and that's what you want to go for this. You want flat. You got hilly. Some guys are going to do better than others. The flat plain north of the Apennine Mountains. The Apennine Mountains is a mountain range that runs through central Italy. By Bologna, it kind of runs northeast, southwest, and then it runs north, south, south of there, whatever. So we look one direction, you see the high hills. So we were really in Bologna. That's a city. You can't set up antennas there. We were 13 miles southeast of Bologna in a place called Castel St. Pietro Terme. St. Peter's Castle, and Terme means thermal baths. They had hot springs there. This is a resort area, a whole bunch of hotels there, whatever. And the main road through there, like the US Route 2 or whatever, Route 7 is called SS9. And I looked that up, and it's just a 2-lane road with a lot of roundabouts. This is the original Via Emilia, which dates back to like Roman times, like 100 AD. Okay, all these towns are pretty ancient, whatever. So why this region? Access to plenty of fields, hotel availability, and tourist sites. This is the original home of Marconi. Marconi started in Bologna, so I mean they had the tie-in there. You're near a lot of stuff. Venice, Florence, Ravenna, Tuscany, and all your big Italian sports car manufacturers are right there. Ferrari, Maserati, Lamborghini, and a few others. And it's world renowned for its food. At least that's what they tell me. So this is a map of Italy, just so you get, the boot-shaped thing or whatever. And Rome is right over here. That's where you fly into, right? It's right in the center of the country there. So we took the train up to Bologna, right up that way. Okay, and then from Bologna, we went to Venice, we went to Florence, we went to San Marino. So we were there, and then we went back to Rome and spent a few days there. Now, you guys are an HF? You guys operate WRTX?
Yeah.
And you work all these Italians and they all start with I or IK or IW, and what does all that mean? And I never knew that either. I just knew there was a whole bunch of pilots and everyone yelling and screaming at me and all this crap, right? And so all the Italians in the major part of Italy, they're going to be I, IK, IW, IZ, and they just added IU. That doesn't tell you where they are. It's kind of like whether you're a KA or a KB when you got your license. But the number does matter. So the numbers start up here in the northwest with I1, 2, 3, 4 is where we were, 5, and then the 6, 7, 8 go down to the bottom. And Rome is 0. You don't work too many zeros, right? Not too many I zeros or IK zeros, because Rome is like packed. Buildings right next to each other, and they're all 5 stories because they can't be higher than the basilica, right? So they're all low buildings, not a lot of room to put ham radio. The guys who have ham radio stations live kind of towards the outer edges of Rome where it's a little bit less built up. And then you got special prefixes like IS for Sardinia, IT for Sicily, IN for Trieste. I never knew this. It was kind of interesting to learn those things. So just looking at the area, just getting a sense of where you are. Here's Bologna, and the actual operation was just nearby. It was a 15-minute train ride. It was pretty easy. We spent one day going up to Venice that way. We spent another day going to Florence and Pisa, and another day going to San Marino. So, and all of this within a few hours of each other. So that was really good. And then locally, here's Bologna. So we came into the train station over there, and the WRTC is here. And so we could either take the low road, or they have this thing called the Autostrada, interstate. Okay, so yeah, the good thing, you can go 130 kilometers an hour. In fact, I didn't even see it marked. I didn't know what it was. I asked somebody. And, you know, a little putt-putt car I had, you know, you get to about that speed, the hamsters start to complain or whatever. But it's a toll road. And like my Easy Pass don't work there. Or what they call it Fast Pass here in this era. So I had to carry change with me. You know, so they have 1 and 2 euro coins. I had to have a bunch of those. And then I had to go into the right lane, and the lanes have either these pictures that you don't know what the hell they mean, or Italian, which I don't really speak that well. I thought I spoke Italian pretty well. I grew up in Brooklyn, and I figured, you know, when you live in Brooklyn, it's one part Italian, one part Yiddish, and many parts Brooklynese. You know, so you know, like, someone cuts you off, you know. You didn't hear that, right? Or you know, I talk about my Goomba friends, or it says, what did the government give you? Ungats. I heard that the other day on the radio. I fell on the floor laughing. I remember that. We used to say that. And I figured the words I don't know, it's kind of like Spanish. No, it's not that close. So I went in the wrong lane, and there was no bucket to stick the change in. I pushed the button. Hey, how do I pay this here? The guy comes out, hands me this. He paid online, gives me the slip written in all Italian. And what am I going to do with this? So we later found out, someone said, you go to any tobacco shop, you can pay the tobacco shop. But that's what we did. So yeah, the driving on the Autostrada it was fun. I mean, Italian drivers are pretty wild, but you know, I'm from New York, so it didn't really faze me very much. So playing radio in Italy, so some of the things you got to know. It's an 8-hour flight from Boston, right? You're crossing 6 time zones, so actually you're now 14 hours out of it when you're going eastbound. Like we took off at 4:30, and we were alive in Rome at 7:30 in the morning. Where did all that time go? Well, it's flight time and time zones. It's all full metric there, right? You know, they're all talking about foreign language metric stuff, which I'm used to as a scientist, but still, you know, it's my second language. The power is 230 volts, 50 hertz. You require a 3-pin plug, which is not standard to the rest of Europe now. They use a 2-prong plug, and supposedly, I read on the internet, yes, this will work. Well, not really. Luckily, we had a 3-pin adapter so we could charge the phones. You have to set up your cell phone for the international plan, and the money is in euros. The euros is, when we were there, it's $1.19. As I don't know, with the way our government's running our country, it probably ain't worth nothing now. had to download a Europe map into my GPS, because GPS, you know, even asked it, okay, I want to go to Rome, and it sat there for about 20 minutes and gave up, said, can't figure it out. I was trying to find a road through Greenland or something. No. Auto's a manual shift. My wife says, you can't drive, it's a manual shift. I said, I learned on a stick, I can do that. I just had to remember to kind of like pop the clutch in when I wanted to reverse. I kept forgetting. Problem getting, yeah. I said, wait, I forgot something. Okay. As an EU nation, you get full reciprocal privileges. You just have to make sure you're on the right frequency. So I became I4 stroke W1SJ. And their frequencies are different, so you have to know what that is. They have repeaters there, they're very limited, they're pretty weak, and nobody came back to me on it. And everything's in Italian, and they don't have too many signs in English there, and the people there don't really speak English. That's not like Germany. They kind of know a little bit, and you got to do a lot of hand wavings. I saw a sign in the store saying, if you're not moving your hands, you're not speaking Italian. I fell on the floor laughing. It's like, yeah, that's about right. So what do they do at WRTC? They start on Tuesday, which was actually the 4th of July. And most everyone arrives. And then Wednesday evening, they have the opening ceremonies. We didn't go to that because we were in Venice. Okay, we were touristing, right? Thursday meetings, they have the referee. They meet with the referees. They assign who your referee is going to be. It's all by... they just pick lots. Friday, they assign the location. So they get 58 teams, 58 locations. You go here, and it's just the luck of the draw. Then they move their equipment to the site, put it all together, plug it all in, make sure it works. Most of them actually stayed on site Friday night. It wasn't like Boston where they go home to the hotel, but you want to get everything working because the contest starts Saturday at 2 o'clock. So what they do now, it's just kind of like the Academy Awards. At 1:45 Italy time, 8 o'clock here, they open up a sealed envelope with the call sign they're going to get. So all the call signs were I, 4, another number, and one letter. They just didn't know what they do that so that they can't tell their friends, look for me in the contest. It's secret type of stuff, right? And then at 2 o'clock, the referee is watching the time and everything is synchronized. Is okay, let's start. And then they start CQing and whatever. And then 24 hours later, Sunday at 2, and they're up all night. And there's no sleeping here or whatever. The guys that had a pool, they didn't use the pool. Maybe after the contest they did. 2 o'clock on Sunday, it's over. They got a half hour to check over the logs, make sure they didn't screw something up, mistype or whatever. And then at 2:30, they hand everything to the referee. The referee drives back to headquarters, which could have been an hour and a half drive. They were all over the place. And they hand it to the judges. The judges upload it, whatever, and then we crunch the numbers and determine first, second, third place and all the various winners. Monday evening, we have the closing ceremonies. We announce the winners. And then Tuesday, everyone goes bye-bye. My schedule was a little bit different, and the plan was in Germany. I was on the antenna team, so we spent 3 days putting up antennas and then 2 days watching them. I didn't have a lot of time to do tourist stuff. I said, no, I'm not going to do that this time. So what we did is Tuesday, we left for Rome. Actually, it was Monday we left. I drove from Vermont. So drove the 3 hours into Boston, had family pick us up, take us over to Logan, 8-hour flight. And then in Rome, we then took the train to Bologna and got acclimated on Tuesday. And we watched the fireworks on TV. Wednesday, we went to Venice. Thursday, we went to San Marino and operated T-77LA, rare DX country, right? Friday, we went to Florence and Pisa. Saturday during the day, now we went and visited some of the WRTC stations. Well, there's 58 stations. I'm not going to see them all, and they're pretty far away. So we picked like 4 nearby just to see what was going on. Saturday evening, wife and I, we had dinner in Bologna, walked around. So, we acted like normal people instead of hams. Sunday morning, we visited the Marconi Museum. Sunday afternoon and Monday now, I had to go to work, log checking. So that was my gig then. sent the wife off to Ravenna. She went to a tourist trip there. And then Monday evening was the closing ceremony, say goodbye everyone, kiss and hug, all that stuff. Tuesday we take the train to Rome, and then Wednesday we went to the Vatican. Thursday we went to the rest of Rome, and then Friday we just kind of relaxed. Saturday we got out of there. So trying to coordinate the schedule of the event and coordinate our schedule and keep the wife happy, that was my mission. So this is where we stayed, the Anuska Palace Hotel. Why do we pick this hotel? Well, it's the headquarters hotel because of the pool. Because the wife said, I need a pool. It's going to be hot there. So she sat by the poolside and she was happy. And, you know, happy wife, happy life, all that stuff, whatever. And I sat with the rest of the guys there, you know, having a drink, whatever, talking about Rare DX and all that stuff. And as you came in there was this board, and I don't know if you can see it, everyone's signatures on it. So everyone logged in, and if you look at it closely, there's going to be a lot of contest calls that you've recognized over the years. So on Thursday, they assigned the referees. And so there's 58 of these pictures. I'm not going to show you 58 pictures, obviously. There are, basically it's just team NA1 and NA2. In fact, W1UE in the top picture, the guy wearing the yellow shirt, he was here in the last talk. So he's wandering around. And that's K1XM, who's pretty active in the Boston area. And then the bottom is Brandy K5ZD and W2SC. So they get together with the referee, they marry to the referee, and then they take a picture and multiply this 58 times, which we won't do it. Then the call signs were assigned, but they didn't know what it was until they opened the envelope. And these are all the call signs. So I-41A, the first one, if you can see it, that was our club station back at headquarters. That was the guest station. That's what I operated at. And, you know, they had I-41D, I-41K, all these strange things, whatever, you know, you didn't know. It was always I-4, number, letter. So they were given 15 minutes before the event so they can program that into the memory and into the computer so they can send that. That's the antenna they use. That's the ALZ-73. This was right outside my hotel window. That was our guest station. It's up on a 35-foot mast, so it's not something that's going to set the world on fire, but it will get you on the air. And here's the pictures from some of the stations. So this W1UE and K1XM operating, their call sign was I-46C. They were set up in a gymnasium. I just talked to him about it, and he wasn't happy. God, that site is terrible. But that was the luck of the draw. And this is their antenna, kind of like at sunset here. So it kind of looks kind of cool. And the dipole are down below it. Now these guys, this is I-46C. This is 403A. This is from Moldova, and 983A from Croatia. They're in a kitchen. That's the best place to operate from, man. You always got to be near the food. So that looked kind of nice. And then here's another team. They were in some sort of living room or something. And these guys had either a bed in the room or a bed in the next room so they could lay down. Not that you really want to do that when you're competing, but let's say you need to just get 5 minutes just to reset. You have that. This is I-43O. This is the youth team. And these guys actually won. They're in a kitchen too. Now check this out. I don't know if you can see this, but this is a whole platter of appetizers and delicacies. That's why they won. They were fueled best. So yeah, that was great. I mean, I remember what we had in Boston. You sat in a hot, sticky tent, and a lot of these places were air conditioned, right? The tents are not air conditioned. Okay, here's another one. This was kind of in a living room. This one, look at all those wires. How can Marconi call this wireless? My God. Each guy has 2 computers and 2 radios. The stuff that these people bring, you just see cases and cases of stuff getting unpacked and set up into these things. It's like, wow.
So all the countries doing it, they're sitting indoors now instead of tents, or is that?
Well, that's what they did in Italy. Now, what they're going to do in England, I don't know. It's up to them. That's what they chose to do. Now, the problem with sitting in those locations from a technical standpoint, in Boston, we check those sites. for 2 years, that was my job. The 2 years prior, we would go to the various sites and operate, and then they would look at what we were working and check the signal strengths, and they threw out a bunch of sites up north that were doing very well. They wanted to make them as easy as possible. So so that was in 2014. In 2012, I operated from Mansfield Airport, Mansfield, Mass. That was considered the gold standard. Totally flat, a mile around, right? And so they looked at, you know, if a site was much better than that or much worse than that, they threw it out so that they'd be equal. They didn't do that in Italy. And then you had a problem, you're in a building that with power, there could be noise there. There could be other computers running. So they had that issue going on too. So it wasn't as balanced as, you know, in Boston, we took great pains to make sure they were balanced. But these guys had air conditioning and they had a nice room. So trade-offs. These guys, I actually went to this particular site. This is the Australian New Zealand operator. This was like a dining room of a resort. They weren't using it. Right outside was a pool. And then where their antenna was, it was a slope going down about 100 feet towards the US. It's like, these guys have to win. Well, they didn't, but it was a nice site. And I don't know if they used the pool, and I never found that out. So this is the judging committee. So I was a volunteer on the judging committee. So I got it. These guys are appointed. They make the decisions, and I'm there to help them out, sort of thing. So, I mean, we had a couple of guys from the US. We had a guy from Russia. We had a guy from Brazil. We had a guy from Slovenia. So it was an international cast of characters. So if anyone said anything, I'm like, no, we have people here all over the place, right? And we basically sit there, look at the computers, try and load the logs up. We had a big problem. The software, some of the software that the competitors were using was not putting the sent report in. And then when we went to upload the ARL said, that's no good. That's not an incomplete log. So we had to then track down the referees and, hey, we got to fix the log. And then they actually put me in charge of fixing the logs. I said, so it was a little crazy there on Sunday. So then we're done. We have the closing ceremonies. And we get this big room. They get everyone in there. I think they were charging $85 for dinner. So my wife and I went in there and we did the meet and greet thing and said, all right, see you guys later. We went out to a restaurant down the road, which was every bit as good, actually. And then I came back and said hello to them during dessert. So the guys wearing orange are referees. The guys wearing yellow are competitors. So it's color coordinated shirts, and the guys wearing blue are the committee or the grunts. So here are the youth winners. So these are the young guys. So YL3YA on the right and UR5YKO from Ukraine. And they had an initial ruling they weren't allowed to wear a flag, but they kind of walked away from that. And I remember there's a lot of Russians in this competition, and they didn't really want people shooting at one another at the event, but they kind of back up. You can't really tell people what to do. And let's just say it was a major win for Ukraine that day, and not so much for Russia. But we're ham operators. Really, we get beyond that. These are the bronze winners, third place, the guys from Croatia. They did pretty well. And the second place was the German team. These guys have finished second the last 3 years in a row. So you can either say it's like a mark of consistency that's unmatched, or always a bridesmaid, never a bride. They also win the most accurate log. They check for errors and they get the least number of errors, and they've won that a couple of times. So they're pretty darn good. They're maybe one spot, and they came in second in North America in Boston. So like they're pretty good, you know. They say, why aren't you in this? I'm good, but not that good. and here are the winners here. Yeah, there's Yuri and the other guy, and these are the presenters, and yeah, they worked pretty hard at it. It was, I think they worked for it. They got their job, they got their thing in. So that's the ham radio part of what we did. Now we're going to talk about travel and tourism. So Italian trains, we took trains every which way, whatever. So the main company is a Trenitalia, which is Italian train, right? And their high-speed trains is called the Frecciarossa, or the Red Arrow, goes up to 225 miles per hour. Sometimes they don't go that fast. They were always like going fast, slow, whatever. So it's certainly better than Amtrak. Well, anything, you can go to darkest Africa and get on a train better than Amtrak. I mean, really, it's terrible. But they don't even come close to the Shinkansen or the bullet train in Japan. The bullet train, you float. This thing jerks wildly, and you have these old Italian people with suitcases trying to walk through the aisles. This guy ain't gonna make it. The next time that train rolls, he's gonna get bounced out. But it got us there, and pretty much on schedule on Wednesday. On Friday, they were running late a lot. So the fare, like from Rome to Bologna, 2 hours, it's 30 euros if you book it in advance. Well in advance. If you book it the same day, whatever, it's going to be like 70 euros or more each. So it can get expensive. And you can buy it from a ticket agent, or you just go in the kiosk, and you have to kind of punch things in, and you put your credit card in, and you pray a lot that the card will come back out, that they recognize the card. And by the way, you got to know where you're going. You can't just say, get me a ticket to Venice or Florence. That ain't going to work. They won't know what the hell you're talking about. Like it's Venice, it's Venezia Santa Lucia. There's 2 Venice stations. The other one ain't going to get you on the island, right? And then Florence is Fiorenza Santa Maria Novella. Bologna was easy. Bologna Centrale, Central Bologna. So yeah, you kind of had to know that stuff. We figured that out in short order, and how to work through the machine. The first time it brought us to tears. It was terrible. Now the problem is they have unions there, and unions love to strike, and strikes are early and often. Sometimes they don't even tell you they're striking. Sometimes they do. They actually had a ground controller strike at the airport the day we were supposed to leave. The strike was supposed to start at 10, and we were leaving at 10:30, and we're like freaking out. Nobody knows if the plane's going to get out or not. So we get to the airport, and they load us. And instead of going down a jetway, we go down a flight of stairs and get on a bus. And he's like taking us on a tour of the whole airport. And where the hell is he going? And I realized the plane was way the heck out and beyond to get him away from the strike. And he still had to negotiate with them for him to let him to leave, but he left like 40 minutes late, which they made up. So we were happy we got out of there. Okay, so Wednesday was a visit to Venice. So Venice is a bunch of islands. So it looks like one big island. No, that's many, many little islands separated by canal. And it looks like a fish. Yeah, it does look like a fish. You come in. Can you see the pointer? You come in. This is a causeway which is both cars and trains. The cars get shuttled over here, and the train ends over here. That's it. There ain't no cars in Venice. You got 2 choices. You take a boat or you walk. It's only 2 miles across, so it's not really far walk. And so we got on here, and then this is the Grand Canal. This whole thing, this takes you everywhere you really need to be. And they have these things called Vasparetto. It's the Italian water taxi. So you get on there, I think we gave them, it was like 50 euros for the whole day, unlimited riding. And they take you all through this thing. They have a number of different routes, whatever. We took it all the way over to here, that's St. Mark's. That's the big cathedral. That's where everyone goes. And then on the way back, we made some stops and whatever and had some dinner. And all these little blue lines, if you can see the blue lines, those are canals too. It's so you can walk through there. It's very narrow little streets, and you're crossing canals all the time. So it's quite an interesting place. So when you get off the train, that's what you see. This is the loading area. That's the canal, and you get on the boats. And there's a bridge right there called the Ponte del Scalzi, the Scalzi Bridge, right? So I'm looking back down the canal, and now we're looking up the canal. You see there's one of the boats there over to the right. Oh, let me tell you about Italian ferry boat drivers. You have an interesting way of docking. So, a normal ferry boat, come in, you go in slowly, you reverse the engines, you ease into the docks. Not in Venice. Bang! And the first time it happens, it kind of startles you and knocks you over. And then, well, I guess he's having a bad day. And then the next one, bang! And that's the way they dock boats in probably all of Italy. I don't know, but probably beats the hell out of the dock. So, that was good. Now, what I wanted to do, I wanted to get onto a gondola and sing Like a Virgin, like Madonna does. But for $100 for 10 minutes, kind of like, well, I can just imagine. We were on the boat. I sat on the front of the boat and did it. And this is a church you go by. That was actually that church you saw across from the loading area. That's the Chiesa di San Simon Piccolo. I don't know what its history is, but it looks pretty impressive, so we took a picture of it. And this is St. Mark's. This is like really a big deal, right? You know, this is like a UNESCO World Heritage Site, whatever. You know, this thing dates back to the 14th century or whenever they built it. That was when Venice was a world power, and they had gazillions of bucks or lira or whatever they had back then that they could build these things. And you know, see a lot of tourists there, a lot of pigeons, you know, a lot of stuff going on. Here's the front entrance up close and personal. And every cathedral has a bell tower. Bell towers are a big thing. That's, you know, they ring the bell and you know they come to church and give them money, right? That's what my Italian friend says. There's the bell tower. That's 323 feet. Like 35 stories. That's a pretty big thing there. So this thing there, this is called the Bridge of Sighs. So the building over to the left, that's the courthouse. The building over to the right, that's the jail. It was a one-way traffic across that bridge. You went from the courthouse to the jail. You didn't come back the other way. I thought about walking across it, but you had to buy a ticket for the museum. They wanted like 30 euros. I said, we don't got the time for it. But it's kind of impressive looking at it, you know, and it goes across this little canal. It's kind of deep. And there's a kind of a close-up of it. And you can see like there's little archway bridges every block across all these canals. And here's looking down yet another canal. Yeah, we had so many canal pictures. It was ridiculous. But yeah, that's life there, you know, and you basically had to walk or take a boat. Now, so we found a hotel that actually had a bathroom we can go into. And, you know, Venice sits on the water, whatever, and I'm doing my business there, and I'm thinking to myself, only I would think of this. Where is this going? We're on top of water. I didn't ask anyone, and, you know, I didn't research this further, but Venice has a big problem with, they're very low, and the islands are sinking because of all the weight of the buildings on it. It's a lagoon. Some say it's because of all the tourists, but no, tourists, they're not doing it. And, you know, like the sea levels are coming up as the glaciers are melting and all that stuff. And so in January, it floods. Those plazas flood. And the Italians, they don't care. They just put boots on and walk around it and stuff. I didn't really want to have to deal with the flooding. No. So you've probably seen this bridge. You see a picture of Venice. This is the Rialto Bridge. This is a big deal there. Now, that bridge is basically stores and shops on either side of it. That's like a mall. Okay? Those windows are the windows of the different stores, and you see all the water taxis there. It's pretty crowded in that Grand Canal. There's boats going every which way, and then if a water taxi passed too close to a gondola and kind of rocks them, they start doing that. And I didn't observe that, but I read about that. And we're back to we started the Ponte del Scalzi, which, it's an interesting bridge. So Thursday, we set up a trip to San Marino. San Marino is an independent country, dates back to the 1200s or 900s, a long time ago. Totally landlocked. I don't know the exact thing, but they are an independent country. All right. They won't let us get a license there. The only way that anyone not from San Marino can operate is you have to visit somebody's station. So it's down here. It's totally landlocked. It's not on any train line. You have to kind of get off the train and take a bus or a cab or something like that. Here's what it looks like closely. So it's about 5 miles across. The place we went to is a place called Acquaviva, which is right over here. So the person who was driving me actually went this way, went around and came in this way instead of going through the middle of town. And it's very medieval. They have these three big mountain, very steep mountain ranges, the three towers of San Marino, and each has a castle on it. I'm told you can't drive there anymore. I don't know. I think there's a cable car or something. We didn't have that. This was a ham radio day, so I didn't have time to be a tourist. We just took the pictures and did that. And so we visited Angie at T77LA. This, I think, is maybe his first hobby, what you're seeing in the picture. It's on his QRZ site, right? And I asked him, where did he catch that monster? I think it was the Adriatic Sea. No, it was a local lake. I said, oh, crap, I ain't going swimming in that lake there. That thing looks like it might bite you or something. I don't know. And he's got hex beam on the roof and a vertical. So, well, better than a dipole, right? A little hex beam there or whatever. And we set up a station in his garage, so someone else was going to come and operate the next day. And so, you don't want to be parading people through the house, and he's got a wife and kids and whatever. So we set up a station in the garage and ran the coax down, and that's where actually he's used it as a basement. So Angie's to the left. To the right is IK7EP. EPD, IPD, IKV, right? He's the one who actually set me up to do this. Great job. And here I am operating the pileups. Okay, so it's great. You get to sign a weird call sign, and mostly Europe. So this is like in the evening around 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock their time is 1 in the afternoon. Not too good for DX over here. So yeah, I'm busy working people. We had Tony, T77C, come by and visit. I worked him on FT8. He didn't upload his logs, and I was saying, I gotta go over there and see Tony. Actually, since he later did upload his logs, and he actually handed me a real QSL card, so that was good. So I got to meet some of the hams from over there, so that was nice. So and then during that time, I left Debbie at the pool. She didn't want to know from ham radio. So yeah, one of the things that they say is that the food is really good in this area. The first 3 days, we didn't really sit down and have much of a dinner. We always were having pizza because we were always on the run trying to catch a train to get back to somewhere. Now, the joke is I don't eat pizza. I hate cheese. Cheese to me is like rubber cement, and I won't touch it. But they have something called a Napoli pizza, Milanese. I forget what it is. No cheese. It's tomato sauce with oregano, and it tastes. I could taste it. My dead taste buds, if I can taste it, it's pretty good. So we were having that. That was great, Debbie didn't like it as much, but so she ate at the hotel that day, and there was pizza night, and you got this pizza and that pizza, and then the last pizza was pizza with tuna fish on it, because I feed that to the cat. So she wasn't impressed. And then we had this other guy, Crassy, who donated the bean, K1LZ, and we were all sitting around, and he's saying, I come here for the food. And every time he says something, he emphasizes that by putting the shot glass down. I come here for the food. I come here for the hospitality. I come here for the lodging. All no good. All shit. So every time I see him, I says, Crassy, is the food still shit? Yeah. So we had fun with that, but Debbie kind of agreed with that. We actually did finally find some pretty good restaurants. So it was like where you went. So what I had to do is I had to drive down to Forlì and then meet up, and then we drove into San Marino. So this is about an hour and a half, 2 hours type of thing, but it's all highway driving. So then we went to Florence. So here's Bologna over here. And the train trip to Florence is all underground. It's all train tunnels. These are big mountains in here. So we went to Florence, spent 3 hours there, and then we went to Pisa. Okay, see the Leaning Tower. So in Florence, we just walked around and looked at the sites. We didn't really go in anywhere. How come you didn't go to the museum? I said, well, most of the statues are basically guys with their Johnson hanging out. Been there, done that. It's like, I'm not, I want to see antennas. I don't want to see statues. It's the way, and you had to pay to get in. You had to wait in a line. So we just took the pictures from the outside. So this is the Florence Cathedral or the Duomo, really big deal. The thing is tremendous. The thing is like 373 feet high at the top of it. There's a picture of the side, and there's the front door. So pretty impressive. I think in Italy, I think the thinking back then was, if you build them bigger, God will like you or something. That's the takeaway I got from this. Can't you kind of like meet in a little shack somewhere like hams do? This building is the Palazzo Vecchio. This is the seat of government. Kind of looks interesting with the tower. I would hang an antenna from that, but I guess they wouldn't do that. Then we have, this is the one picture of the statue I have. This guy is leaking. See the water spraying out all over. This is the Fontana de Nettuno, Neptune statue. They have a lot of Neptune statues because, we're kind of by the water there. And then this is great. My second hobby is geocaching, and one of the geocaches, I had to take a picture by this thing. This is Perseus holding the head of Medusa after you cut it off. But he's looking at the head, and I thought if you looked at the head of Medusa, you turned to stone or whatever. I'm not up on my stories or whatever, but it was impressive looking. This is the Ponte Vecchio, the old bridge in Florence. Hitler invaded Germany after they killed off Mussolini, and he gave specific orders not to bomb this bridge, but they would bomb all the bridges, right? And this bridge is just like the Rialto Bridge in Venice. There's all these stores and shops in there, and they're all air conditioned. So guess where we hung out? We're talking like temps in the 90s the whole time we were there. And I can handle it. I'm uncomfortable, but the wife was just beside herself. It's terrible, hot, hot, hot. If we stayed home in Vermont, we would have been swimming because we had all the floods there, right? But these stores had air conditioning, so we kind of went shopping for jewelry, went, all this stuff while we were cooling off. But it actually looked very modern inside. The outside, they make it look old. And that bridge is going over the Arno River. This river actually heads out towards Pisa, but we didn't take a boat. We actually took the train to go there. And we got into Pisa. So we go to a part of Italy called Tuscany. The Tuscan culture. They were like slightly different people than the Romans. And I know they fought some wars and everything. And you get to the Pisa Cathedral. And remember I said all cathedrals have to have a bell tower? This is the bell tower they have. Now notice the trees are slanted too. I wonder if that was done on purpose. So the building doesn't look as crooked because the trees are crooked as well. But if you go to the other side of it, it's pretty obvious. It's a 4-degree tilt. And when you go up there, so it's not that high. It's only like 280 feet, something like that. It was 275 steps, something like that, as I counted. The problem is they're very narrow passageway, and the marble that the steps are made of has been polished for the last 1,000 years. So it's pretty slippery in there. I made it up. I had to make one stop. I got tired there. And you go up to the top. So what did I do when I get to the top? I did what Galileo did. I remember I teach physics, right? I threw shit off the building, see if they would land at the same time. My wife goes, "You did what?" I said, "Well, there was no one down below. That was like a closed off area. I wanted to see if they hit at the same." They did. I had a picture of me throwing the stuff off, but I lost that picture. But you actually lose your. It's only 4 degrees off, but you lose your sense of balance. Like you just don't feel right. So it was kind of neat. Here I am trying to straighten the building. Everyone does that. we had to straighten the building. Supposedly they stabilized it by pumping dirt out from the north end and pumping it into the south end. So they brought it back a little bit. So there's not all that much in Pisa, but it was certainly impressive to see that up close and personal. And God, they started at like 1100 something, and they stopped for a while trying to figure out what to do with it, going cockeyed. And then some guy had some bright ideas, and they started like 100 years later and did it. It's interesting, but it's still there. That's the amazing part about it. So Saturday night we went to Bologna. We went to a place called Italy, and it was pretty good. They have Italy in Boston at their chain. This is one of the original ones. So yeah, that was good food. They had steak there, apennine steak, and I forget what Debbie had, but But then she was complaining, we want to be inside. I want to be in the air conditioning. Yeah, we're outside here. You know, it's hot and everything. I said, the picture of the checkered tablecloth from inside, that's like from old mafia movies. They don't do that here. There is a big difference between northern Italy and like Sicily, which I'm used to from New York. So, you know, there is a difference. So this is the Torre Lambertini, Lambertini Tower. It looks cockeyed. They claim it's not, but I don't know. To me, it is. What we later learned is that there's a lot of stuff, a lot of towers in Italy that are cockeyed. Italian engineering being what it was back in the 11th century or whenever they built these things, they had some issues there. But the famous one in Bologna is the Twin Towers. So this is the Astanella, which is the big one. That's big. That's 318 feet. That's like a 35-story building, right? And the smaller one, which you can just barely see, that's the really cockeyed one. That's the Garrisenda. That thing is leaning over at 4 degrees. That is leaning over as much as Pisa. But you never heard of these things, right? You only hear about it if you go to Italy. Pisa has the better publicist, I guess, or the better website. I don't know. But they're actually, so they had a picture there of crooked towers all over the world. And so here's Pisa. Pisa's not really that high. And it's almost as bad as the Garrinella. The big one is off by one degree, so that's not that much. But look, they have one over in Russia there, and Germany. They're really leaning over. And even Big Ben is a very slightly, a quarter of a degree. You probably won't notice it. And there's a bunch of others in Italy like that. So it's not that weird, except that Pisa, we all know about. The others we don't. This is the clock tower, and this also looked like it was leaning. This is a famous landmark in Bologna. There's the front door of it. And this statue looked interesting. It's the, which one is, it's the statue of Neptune. Yeah, Neptune is a big thing there, right? So this is right in the square there where that clock tower is. So Sunday morning, we managed to get a visit to Villa Grifone. This is where Marconi grew up. This is where he first discovered radio. He was a kid then. He was up, they said he was in the attic. It was the third floor. That building dates back to like 1800. It was an old building even when his family took it over. And he's buried in this crypt. How did he get that arranged? Well, I found out that Marconi, besides being a radio guy, was also a fascist. And him and Mussolini were like this. You know, whatever. I mean, he's a ham. That's all I care about, right? And so when he died in 1937, Mussolini built him this crypt, and that's what it looks like inside, actually. You know, you can't go in there. It's locked gate, but, you know, better than being in a dirty old cemetery, right? I don't know. So when you go in there, it's a museum. They have all these pieces of stuff that he invented, either he actually invented or replicas of. They had a crystal radio. And I asked the guy, how do you make this work? They have hardly any AM stations in that area. You know, because the first thing I put in the car, I put the AM on because I wanted DX stuff, right? And there's 3 local stations and a couple further away that are really weak. He says it's getting very hard. They take all the AM stations off the air there. They're all on FM. Well, crystal radio is not going to work on FM, right? They might have to put their own bootleg transmitter on just so they can recreate it. So here's some more stuff there. Again, you know, you could spend hours there just looking, if you're a radio nut, looking at all these things. This is a wireless telegraph from a ship, similar to, but not exactly the same as what was on the Titanic, right? Same type of thing. You got the big dynamotor there and the capacitors and all that stuff to you know, put out the sparks and everything. This is an airplane radio, okay, little bit newer. And this was his laboratory, or the place he did his experiments up on the 3rd floor. The stuff there is period parts. That, you know, he didn't have the stuff there because it was always changing. And the window, which you see just to the right, to the left of this picture, right? That's what the window says there. And the Italian there says the first radio, he basically had an antenna sticking out the window. And the first radio waves were sent from this window in 1895. He sent it out to his, so he had an estate there. There's a lot of land there. And way out in the yard, they actually picked it up. How did they let him know? Well, they picked out the cell phone and called him, right? No. The way they let him know they heard him is they took a rifle, bang. that was a signal. That's kind of an interesting way of doing it, right? So now on the property, they have this 150-foot tower, this tremendous Yagi on it, used by the Ham Club. I said, oh, that's what he used. No wonder he can work anywhere. They said, no, he didn't use that. I don't have my picture of that, unfortunately. Here's a Marconi phone that they use with the old type of speaker. And this is a radio out of a Ducati radio. So lots of interesting stuff. One problem of going to tourist sites in Italy is they speak English somewhat. Very thick accent. So it makes very thick accent with very poor hearing. You hear a little bit of it. All right, so we did the closing ceremonies, we did the whole thing, and then on the next Tuesday we went to Rome. I probably should tell you about driving a car in Italy into Bologna. So we had to get back to the rental car place, which was just north of the train tracks. And so we put it in the GPS how to get back there. Well, there's a problem. In Italy, no two roads run parallel. That's the first problem. The second problem is all roads have long Italian names. First and second name, and maybe even a middle name thrown in, and the house number is last. So I knew where I had to go. I had to go to Nicola dell'Arca numero 2. The GPS don't speak Italian. So I said, okay, Bologna Centrale, can you take me to the train station? But the problem is it took me across the tracks, the wrong place to be. So now we're like totally lost. And now not only have the GPS, but we have both our phones working on the problem. And we try to say the Avis rent-a-car, and the phone is trying to take us out to the airport. It's like, it took us an hour and a half. And we're freaking out because in Italian cities, they have this thing called ZTL, Zona Trafficato Limitato. You can't drive there. If you drive there and you don't have the sticker, you get in trouble. Oh, they send you a big fat fine is what they do. And so we're freaking out about that. I guess we didn't cross the line because we haven't gotten a ticket yet. We haven't gotten a QSL card. So at any rate, yeah, and my wife, we're never going to get out of here. And she starts crying. I said, we'll get out of here. It may not be in any timely manner, but, eventually, in laws of random physics, we eventually have to, I figured all I got to go is go north of the train tracks, and I would do that. You can see the train tracks, but then the road wouldn't go through or something, it would be a dead end. And, so it was challenging to say the least. But we got there. And so Rome, this is central Rome. There's the Tiber River in the middle. Our hotel was right here. We picked it purposely. And my brother was there like a year or two ago. This is by what's called Largo Argentina, ruins, whatever. And it's halfway between the train station, which is over here, and the Vatican, which is over here, and all this other stuff like the Pantheon and Capitoline Hill and all this stuff is all easy walking distance. So we took the Uber because 99 degrees and carrying luggage, that just wasn't going to get it done. So, but anyway, this is kind of the area. Rome is much bigger than this, but certainly allowed us to get to where we needed to be. So on Wednesday, we went to the Vatican ostensibly because that's when the Pope has, the open thing there and he blesses you. And I figured I need some blessings to do better in the contest because I've been getting my butt kicked lately, right? He didn't show. He was home at Lakeside Manors. I guess he doesn't do it in July, but the website didn't kind of let on to that. So the square, this is St. Peter's Square, it was kind of empty. So we took a lot of pictures of that. That's St. Peter's Basilica. It's a pretty big place. And that's the obelisk there. They have a lot of obelisks in Rome. I don't know why. This is the boundary between Italy and the Vatican, that chain link fence there. So that's open. The rest of the Vatican is a wall and with gates. You got to get through the Swiss Guard, and if you don't have a reason to be there, they ain't going to let you through those gates, only in the front. There's the obelisk up close and personal, and there's St. Peter's more in the afternoon. And there's this round portico that goes around it. There's the left side of it, and then it comes all the way around to the right side there. So yeah, somebody spent a fortune on this place, right? And then they had this statue or this sculpture called Status Unawares or something. It's basically immigrants, what immigrants look like. There's all these people dressed up in strange clothes and whatever, immigrants coming out on a boat. They commissioned somebody to do it, and it's sitting there. It's pretty impressive looking, actually. And there's the Swiss Guard. Now, not only they had Swiss Guard, they had the Rome Metro Police and the Companieri. And I said, what's the difference? I says, between you and the Companieri, who is the boss? He points to the driver. I said, no. I said, they actually have equal say on things there. But there was a lot of police present there. So I asked the Swiss Guard, I said, can I get a picture? He said, no, pas be. I said, how can you wear that thing? It's 99 degrees hot. And he didn't answer me. He wasn't into making jokes. I snapped his picture anyway from a distance. And these are one of the gates. So yeah, you don't go through that gate unless you have reason to do that. There's also a train that goes in there too. I didn't know that. It's a one-stop train that comes in from the Rome train system there. They don't use it very much. This is the inside of the museum. We had a lot of pictures of the museum, but I lost those on the camera. Just a lot of statues and things. But I did take some pictures in the where Michelangelo painted the ceiling. They don't want you to take pictures there. I wasn't going to ruin something. And of course, I think back to the joke with Jackie Mason. It took him 30 years. It says you get a couple of your friends and a roller, and you can do it in a week. I kept thinking of that as I'm looking at this stuff. So I went. This is the inside of St. Peter's. This is big. This is tremendous. I mean, I went in, I looked around, I go, Jesus. My wife goes, you can't say that in here. I said, why not? It's his house, right? And I'm thinking about, we lost our field day site after 30 years, right? We have to find another thing. I said, this would be perfect. We could put at least 7 stations in here. Of course, it's inside a building and it's in the wrong country, but hey, it's big enough, right? We don't have to worry about rainstorm. But yeah, it was pretty big. They had like several different places where you can pray and whatever. Monster place. And I guess on Wednesdays they fill that right up, when the Pope addresses the thing. They get a lot of people through there. So then we went to HB0C. This is a view from there. This is about maybe a quarter mile away. So nothing in Rome can be higher than that. So everything in Rome is like 6 stories, and that's it. You can't, that sticks out. So you look out over Rome, and it's pretty flat. And so I was lucky to get to operate HB0C from the Vatican. And I had to write to one guy. The guy who manages this has an unlisted phone, email, whatever, but I wrote to a buddy of his, and we talked and all that, and we're finally able to get permission. He gets besieged with a lot of people wanting to operate. So there I am there, the ICOM radio in the program or whatever. There was a little air conditioning in there too. And I was on for about an hour, and it was an intense pileup. Europeans in a pileup, they don't stop calling. They just keep calling and calling and calling. And I'm good. I can pick people out. And I got a spot on the cluster said, this is insane or something like that. I said, no, it's not. This is fun. I was just going one right after the other. No North America. They said, some guys in Vermont said they heard me barely. And I said, North America only. They just kept calling. And I couldn't yell at anyone. He says, hey, you idiot, stop calling. Couldn't do that. I'm in the Vatican, man. The only thing I can do is say, bless you, my son, or something like that. You expect, decorum you have to do there. But that was great. That was, we had a lot of fun doing that kind of stuff. So, at any rate, here are the various operators. So I was operating Adrian and KO8 SCA, who's now on Swains Island. He's a big DXer. He operated it a little before me. Luciano's over to the top left, and Francesco, who runs the operation, I0FEC, IK0FEC, he actually manages. This is the North American Pontifical College. So you go to this college to learn to be a priest. I said, I can do that, and I recited the whole thing from the baptism from the Godfather in Latin, you know. So, yeah, it was kind of interesting. And they're like tuning up the radio, getting ready. So they get on every now and then, usually on the CQ Worldwide, but yeah, you know, not that much. These guys all have jobs, they have things to do. So there where they are, you can't see it, but on that roof there's a big step IR, big antenna. And this is like the second highest thing in Rome outside the Basilica. This building was like 8 stories, so it has a commanding view. And that's what Rome looks like from the roof. It's pretty flat. You see one big building there, and you see the mountains in the distance. And a 360-degree circle, that's really all you see. Okay, so the next day we went to Rome. This is the Lago Argentino, the Argentine ruins. These were Roman temples. And Argentine's not named after the country, it's named after some god or something. So yeah, you see columns, whatever, and they have a little interpretive sign that shows you what temples were there. And well, by the way, I learned that this is where Julius Caesar was knifed. Not by the Roman Forum, right? He's right by the Teatro Argentino. My hotel was the building next to this one. I says, crap, not only got to worry about the hot weather, now I got to worry about being knifed. I'm looking around, is Brutus around? You know, I'm starting to do the whole thing, right? But yeah, right in there, they had a temple in there he was coming out of, whatever, and that's kind of where they did it. One thing about Rome is built up. The ruins are always 30 feet below street level. They built the city up because it used to flood all the time from the river. So that's what's happened. And in those ruins, you find this. Pussycats. There's a black cat there, and there's another one over in there, and all these things. Don't feed the cats. Don't let them out. You know, they get fed, whatever. And I mean, you don't see them because it's hot. They go in the shade, whatever. But at night you see them wandering around. So yeah, that's one of the tourist things, cat people. So oh yeah, the pussycats. That's great. Yeah. So when we went to Japan, we ate Chinese food. When we went to Hawaii, we ate Japanese food. And then when we go to Rome, we had kosher. Who would have thunk this, right? This is in the old ghetto, and they have all these kosher eateries there. And food was great. Debbie had roast lamb. She loves lamb, right? They made that up, and I had not Wiener Schnitzel. It was chicken schnitzel or whatever, but it was better than having spaghetti every night. You have a little change. But yeah, this was the old ghetto. They built that up. That was at river level. It flooded all the time. It was not the best real estate in town. It was probably the worst real estate in town. But yeah, they kind of now is a tourist place. And this is another fountain called Fontano de Quineno Fiume. It's a 3 rivers fountain. There's water flying out of it every which way. It looked kind of impressive. This is right near our hotel. This is the Trevi Fountain. This is one of the big places you go to. There's a gazillion people there, and they say when you wall-to-wall people, you got to watch. Pickpocketing is a big thing in Rome. So we had everything stuffed in our pants and all that stuff. And I learned that the water from these things are fed by the original aqueducts. So there's like spigots all over town, and they don't turn off. They're on, and the water flows out, which we had to drink a lot of water. This comes from the aqueducts? I says, aqueducts are open, right? Can't someone like pee in it or something? Only I would think this, right? I mean, I'm thinking as I'm drinking, saying, I don't know if it's a great idea. So yeah, there's you can see the heads there, people there. We shot over it. This is the Pantheon. This was 2 blocks away. This building was built in 125. 2,000 years old. It's still there. there's actually some wood in there holding up the front portico, but it's a round building. The reason why it survived all these years is around 300 or 400, whatever, they made it a church. So it was built for the Roman gods, and then when, Roman gods became unfashionable, they converted it to Christianity, and so people were taking care of it all these years. That's why it is in pretty good shape, actually. There's another view early in the morning before all the tourists show up. And this is like what it looks like inside. It's pretty impressive. They have all this religious stuff all around the outside now that you can read about. And this is this big dome that goes over the top, right? So look when I shoot at the top of the dome. That's the lighting system. What the hell? They didn't finish it. There's a hole in the roof. And that thing is 30 feet across, by the way. So why did they do that? That brings light in. They didn't, Rome Electric wasn't founded yet. And so they just rope off the middle there. So if you're in the middle, you get wet. But if you stay off to the side, you're good. I don't know if they had drains there or how they did that exactly. But I look, I said, there's a hole. Then we what's weird about this church? Let's see if you guys are paying attention here. Totally stumped them all.
The candles, you mean?
What's that?
The candles?
Ten Commandments up over the top.
No crucifixes. No Jesus. It's a synagogue. Menorahs everywhere, right? It looks just like a church. I mean, Romans built it. But yeah, the same idea. Just change some of the statues or whatever and show it off a little bit differently. So yeah, that was pretty impressive. Then we went to the Roman Forum. The Roman Forum is a bunch of ruins where they had all the seats of government. This is not as preserved because when the Roman government kind of went out of fashion, nobody cared about this. So Rome is an interesting place. It was founded in 500 BC, and the story is by Romulus and Remus, who were suckled by a wolf. And the guy goes, no, fake news, that didn't happen. I don't know. Maybe wolves were friendlier than whatever. And so between 500 BC and around 0, Rome was a democratic republic. They had senators and the whole thing or whatever. And then Caesar came along, and Caesar started turning the tide. And that's what pissed off Brutus and Cassius, and they kind of killed him. And then Caesar's cousin or nephew, I think his nephew, took over, and he was the first emperor. And then they had emperors. And for a few years, they did well because they were pretty good emperors, right? Pretty good leaders. And things started going downhill. And so what I say is, what do you mean by downhill? Well, their worst emperor, one of their worst emperors, where Rome was falling apart and burning, was better than our emperor. He at least was a music lover, right? That's Nero. He fiddled, right? We have somebody fiddling now, and things are going, whatever. Things are not all that great right now. And they fell apart. Rome was a city of 1 million people during their golden age, and then things weren't getting done. The aqueducts were falling apart. No one was taking care of anything. Does this sound familiar? I don't know about crime in the streets. They didn't have TV then, but things weren't good. And then it went really downhill when the emperor, Constantine, said, this place is terrible. I'm out of here. He went to Constantinople in Turkey. The emperor wasn't even there anymore, and the place really went down. And then the Huns attacked and wrecked the place and whatever. And it was a nothing for the longest time. The Vatican is what kept everything going. The Vatican was still there and guarded and whatever, and that's where all the art went to. Someone said, how come the Vatican has all the art and Rome has nothing? They were the caretakers for all these years. And so anyway, these Roman ruins, whatever, they were ruins because nobody was taking care of them. So, you see the columns, they were unearthed and whatever. You see the holes inside, there was metal in there. People would chip away the marble to get the metal. So yeah, pretty impressive structures, in their day. This is the Arch of Titus. So Titus is the one that went to the Holy Land and kicked ass, whatever, and destroyed the first temple, the second temple, or whatever. And then he mocked them. He showed this little bas relief of him carrying a menorah and carrying it. He brought all the gold and riches and a whole crap load of slaves, and he built the Colosseum. So yeah, that's something we don't know about. Yeah, and I'm thinking, I was like, oh, the Romans were such bastards. We all were. I mean, across history, people just do bad things. I mean, and the sad thing is, as a student of history, we don't learn from it. We keep doing the same dumb things. I mean, you know what's going on in the world right now. So then we went to the Colosseum. I mean, that's like the highlight. There's a picture of us outside the Colosseum. So the Colosseum was a pretty impressive place. It's been ravaged by earthquakes, several of them over the years. That's what makes that Pantheon impressive, is that survived. That didn't have anything falling down. Parts of the Colosseum did fall down. So we went on a tour. We went at the underground. It was a basement level. And that's where they brought all the gladiators and the slaves and this and the lions and the tigers and the bears and everything in there. And they had manually operated lifts that, they had the slave that pushed this wheel, and they would pick them up and they would pop out on the floor. And all of a sudden, there's a gladiator and some guys, or there's some lions, and they would just pop up and the crowd would go crazy. I mean, this was like, large scale entertainment back then. And so we just saw some of these ruins of the basement of where they staged all these events, and it's pretty impressive. When you think about how to do that, and I think they said that the Colosseum held 50, 60,000 when they figured it out. And they had pussycats in there too. So there you can see, so this floor they added, it only covers maybe a third of the Colosseum, just to give you a sense of what's going on. You see to the right, you see the full wall. To the left, the outer wall has fallen down, and they carted it away. So you can see that better. There's the floor there in the distance. They've left this uncovered. Here, the four walls of the Colosseum. Here, the outer wall came down in the earthquake, 1372 or something like that. So we heard this thing where Elon Musk was going to fight Zuckerberg from Facebook or whatever, and they were talking about doing it in the Colosseum. And like, these guys on drugs? I mean, it's a ruin. There's no seats there or anything. It's not like you can put a lot of people in there. Where's it going? I don't know. I mean, you hear some crazy things on TV, but because I heard that, and then we went there and said, how the hell are they going to do that? So there we go. There's some more pictures of it. Pretty big place. And yeah, that's us saying goodbye. So at any rate, that's it. Any questions?
Do you know when WRTC is coming back to the U.S.?
All we know is in 2026 it's going to be in England. I would figure we do, because I figured they'd be in Asia this time, because they've been in Europe. This would be the third time they go in England. But it goes by what local club is willing to put it on. And there's not a lot of people fighting to put it on, unfortunately. They have to kind of beg people. In a lot of countries, there's just not enough of a ham population to pull this off. And you think about when we had it here, we had hundreds of people here, but we have a big metro area to pull from. So in the US, it would undoubtedly either be from this area, or maybe in Florida. Everyone in Florida is retired, I don't know, or in the West Coast. So that's the issue. This is like a major event. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you all for coming out, and have a good rest of Nearfest.
Water bar, Dad. Water bar.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, soda. Thank you. What was your name? Mitch?
Mitch. Yeah.
Thank you, Mitch.